The gale of defections sweeping across the political scene in Nigeria is a major talking point. For some analysts, this is unhealthy for democracy because where there is no effective opposition, democracy cannot thrive. Others say people have the right to associate and to be anywhere they want to be, especially with something that has to do with their political aspirations. Defections in Nigeria's political scene is not new. It's as old as politics and democracy in Nigeria itself. This accounts for the reason why a lot of analysts will say there is no political ideology in Nigeria. Once you have a party in power and the other political parties, they're not in power, the people in that party wants to get access to the national cake, and for them, the only way they can achieve that is to be in the party that is, the ruling party. What is the implication of all of these? We'll take the center stage on our conversation today on the program Politics Today on Independent Television and Radio. And I'm Sonny Duke, of course, welcome on board the program. I'd like to welcome very especially a political scientist. I'd like to thank very especially Neville Obagedo, of course, a lecturer in the Department of Political Science from the University of Benin. Neville, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, ITV, for having me. Good afternoon, viewers and listeners at home.
We're also expecting Patrick Esekwene, who is a legal practitioner, a public affairs commentator, joining us in just a moment. Neville, let's get started. It looks like the major activity for politicians right now is cross-carpeting defection, moving from party A to party B. But this is synonymous with Nigeria politics. Is this the result of lack of ideology or the usual practice of politicians wanting to preserve themselves first and foremost?
Okay. Let me answer you directly that the politics that is being displayed in Nigeria over time is a politics that is ideologyless. It's not based on ideology. It's only based on personal interest. And some politicians want to explain away why they are taking their actions. But because we need to lay a thorough foundation for this discussion, we have to first of all look at the concept of democracy. Democracy is a political idea that have as its branches and strategies other ideologies. Democracy is a philosophy. It's a philosophy and an idea of how people should be given the opportunity to elect their leaders who will take decisions on their behalf. Political decisions, economic decisions, social decisions, religious decisions, and sometimes cultural decisions. And anywhere you see democracy, people vehemently labor and risk their lives and their businesses to ensure that that democracy is defended. If you go to China, they have their own socialist democracy, even though that democracy has undergone some forms of reforms up to the period that Xi Jinping became president. The Chinese have tried in their relationship with other nations of the world to defend their democracy, because a democracy that is based on ideology that affect the world outlook of China and the domestic affairs of China. If you go to America, we have what we call an idea of Trumpism now. That is to say, the sum total of how Donald Trump looks at America and America's relationship with the outside world is an evolving word, Trumpism. The ideas of President Donald Trump, how he feels that the interests of America should be conserved, how he feels that America's interest should be paramount in terms of economic relationship with other nations of the world, or even military relationship with other nations of the world, and so on and so forth. The point we are trying to make is that democracy is an ideology, it's a philosophy, is a way of life that a people consciously and deliberately embrace in their own interest. Number one, to satisfy their domestic needs in terms of leadership and decision making, and to determine their relationship with the outside world. Any country that says they are practicing democracy and these two things are not factored into their democracy, they are practicing civilian rule and not democratic governance. That's what is happening in Nigeria as we speak. Now, apart from what I've said, democracy is supposed to have some main trust, some core themes. Number one, the freedom of association, where the issue of defection can be explained. Then, the fundamental human rights of human beings. Number one of them is the right to life. Life of Nigerians are being taken in different parts of the country. We have Democrats. Are they ready, in line with the provisions of the Constitution, to ensure that an end is put to these brutal killings that are happening every day, and most of them are recorded and transmitted across the world? That's yet another assignment for Democrats in Nigeria, in quote. So, in democracy, we must have rule of law. That is to say, where there is no respect of persons, where there is impartiality before the law, and where there is application of the law without the fear of whose ox will be God in the process. We have that kind of democracy in Nigeria. So sometimes when we hear of defections, we hear of people carpet crossing, we hear of people decamping. Those of us who have buried ourselves in studying theories about life, not necessarily about political science, theories about life, it can be social Darwinism, it can be narcissism, it can be terror, every kind of theory. As a university teacher and a theorist, you are supposed to even read outside of your field, so that you can be well grounded. When we are called upon to make certain statements that can help the society, you should be able to make informed statement. So, as we speak, we expect Democrats in Nigeria. For example, in the case of Delta State, if you go to the State Police Command headquarters, you are going to see lists of crimes that are reported on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis. You see the people that have been killed in Delta State. For example, in the last 1 month. I'm just using Delta State as a case study because we are discussing Delta State. Then we expect the people of Delta State, their leadership, former governor, present one, all those PDP people, those elected and the rest of them that are even officials of the party at local government level, ward level, to the way they zealously entered APC now. We're supposed to see them demonstrating that zealousness to ensure that crime is reduced to the barest minimum in Delta State. Nigerians are crying of hardship, including the people of Delta State. We expect the government of Delta State to come up with a policy trust on how they are solving the problem of Delta State, whether they are in PDP or in APC. What I'm saying about Delta State is also applicable to other states. I'm just using Delta State as a case study. So, when we hear of decamping, the question is this decamping in line with the principles of democracy as an ideology and as a philosophy that people cautiously embrace and they want to practice, so that even if they are facing challenges in the process of feedback loop mechanism, they can extricate those weaknesses and make their democracy to be strong? If the answer is no, if they are not living up to expectation, it means the reason is because the party politics that we play in Nigeria, they are not based on ideology. If they are based on ideology, if a PDP, for instance, as a party is pursuing a different political, economic, and social ideology, and then APC is pursuing a different political, socio-economic ideology, then they are not coterminous. You cannot just wake up one morning and say you now want to join PDP because you believe that your political ideology, economic ideology, cultural ideology, and social ideology will be promoted in PDP when you know that the ideologies are at cross purposes. Yeah. Now, it is because people cross-carpet easily, even though the Constitution empowers people to do so, under certain conditions. Yeah. Like Section 68, subsection 1G of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. It says that National Assembly members can only decamp, or they can defect, let me use that word, when on two conditions. Number one, when there are crises in their political party. And number two, when their party enters into a major agreement with another political party and they are not agreeing with that merging, they can decamp.
Okay.
Now, we can say in the case of PDP and as it relates to Delta State, that the party is in crisis. Now, the party is not in any merger now. The party, one of the reasons why I don't agree with the constitution, in terms of if there are disagreements in your party, you cannot defer to another party. Yes. If you are from a family, and PDP is a family, if you are from a family, APC is a family, if you are from a family, Labour Party is a family, and there are crises in your family, are you not supposed to set machinery in motion to resolve the crisis? And I know that all the constitutions of the political parties, they make provision for resolving conflict up to court level. Yeah. So why will you now just wake up because there are crises that we have not said they are irreconcilable? The next thing is just enter the other political party.
Does the constitution define what this crisis should be, or how this crisis can be measured to warrant such a defection? Because we have seen in several instances, it looks like the crisis is known only to the defector, as it were, and it brings that to the fore. And what you also make of the challenge of leveraging on the constitution to sanction people who just wake up and decide to defect. We have seen instances where attempts were made to recall some legislators on account of this. It never saw the light of the day.
You know, the major problem that we have in Nigeria today is the problem of public administration and lack of development administration orientation. Number one, when we are talking about public administration, a cardinal objective, a cardinal point in administering the public is the recruitment process. Recruitment of people, personnel that will run the affairs of the public. It includes recruitment to the armed forces and the police. It includes recruitment to the judiciary. It includes recruitment to the civil service or public service, as the case may be. Now, the people who steal mandate, if somebody will steal a mandate and become a governor, he will be the one to sign document for recruitment of people into the state judiciary, into the state public service, into everything that has to do with the employment of that is that person. He will recruit party loyalists who will never have the interest of the public at heart, apart from the interest of members of their political party. As it is at the state level, so it is at the federal level, mutatis mutandis. So the crisis that we are facing, Nigeria is not able to tackle insecurity. Go and check how people are recruited to the armed forces. Go and check how people go to Nigeria Defense Academy. I'll go and see how people go into all these strategic decision-making leadership positions in Nigeria. It's on the basis of party affiliation. If you want to go to Nigeria Defense Academy now, you apply. Maybe you go to NDA to go and find out what are the things.
The procedure.
They will just tell you unofficially. They will say, go and look for a politician from your place and get a note. And if you go there and the politician knows that you are not, your family is not supporting the position of the party or supporting the party at that grassroots level, you cannot get it. Even when you have the interest, if you have the interest of the nation at heart to say, I want to be a soldier so I can defend this country. So that is the main problem that we are facing. Okay. And so every other thing that is happening now at a state level, what's happening at local government area level, what's happening at the federal level, is the sum total, the recruitment process. And unless we tackle that process, we are going to be moving at the same spot and be discussing these issues from generation to generation.
Some school of thought believe that with the trend going on in the country, I mean, we read the story in Cross University, where a former deputy governorship candidate, move, and you explained that, I mean, explicitly. Aren't we moving towards a one-party state, as it were?
You see, there are certain times that nation states need to understand, citizens of a country need to understand the kind of country that they find themselves. Some time ago, I took time to read about the Rwanda civil war, the genocide in Rwanda. At any time I talk about Rwanda and the kamikaze that I saw in Rwanda, I shed tears, just as I'm moved to shed tears on this live discussion program. The way human beings that cannot be created by fellow human beings were brutally killed in the name of ethnic policy. You cannot really pinpoint what is the cause. You see that elite will just be there and they will play ethnic card. That same problem spilled over to Burundi, because the major ethnic group in Rwanda and Burundi are the Tutsis and the Hutus. The same problem spilled over to Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Uganda. If you go to Uganda, you will see Tutsis and Hutus here. If you go to Congo, you see Tutsis and Hutus here. And so when you now look at the role of Paul Kagame, the role of Yoweri Museveni, two of them in their emergence, the role that Paul Kagame played in the emergence of Yoweri Museveni as president of Uganda, the role that Yoweri Museveni played in the emergence of Paul Kagame as the president of Rwanda, then the role that the two of them played in the emergence of Lord Desire Kabila of Democratic Republic of Congo, and how they are trying to stage the comeback of the son now, Joseph Kabila. You will weep. Now, what led me to that is the issue of the question that you asked me. Now, why I said that citizens of a country need to understand the kind of policy that is being played in their country and their environment, that they should understand the political ecology of their environment and pattern their life along that line. If you go to the Arab world, the Arab children as they are growing up, they are made to know that they have a common enemy, and that is Israel, the Jewish state, and their allies, that is countries that support the Jewish state. They are enemies of the Arab.
Okay.
They grew up with, if you see an Arab in Nigeria here,
that's the mentality.
That is the mentality. Now we are in a country, Federal Republic of Nigeria, with many ethnic groups. Then, late General Sani Abacha, he saw the struggle for the office of the president. In his own wisdom, he established a constitutional drafting committee that drafted the 1995 constitution, which now metamorphosed to 1999 constitution. And he came up with the idea of 6 geopolitical zones, that power should be rotated between north and south. For example, if northeast produce president when power returns to north, when power is coming to south, or is returning back to north for the second time, yeah, it's another part of the north, maybe not geopolitical zone. So that the struggle for office of president will be, the struggle will be
some sort of balance.
Yes. Then when he now died, they now amended the constitution, the drafted constitution, and Abubakar Abdulsalam General, as the head of state, then now brought this 1999 constitution. Now, as imperfect as the constitution is, the constitution is subject to amendment, and they have been amending it. What stopped the people of Nigeria from saying that the drafters of the constitution, from saying that power shall rotate between north and south? Let it just be there. Let it just be there that this geopolitical zone should be rotating power. Why am I saying it? Because the question you asked me is a question that has to do with telling ourselves the truth, speaking truth to power to Nigerians. Now, when Goodluck Ebele Jonathan became president, there was an argument that the North, that they have produced president for only 2 years, after Obasanjo spent 8 years there. Then Yar'Adua spent 2 years. He took ill and died. Jonathan completed his tenure, that is 2 years. Then Jonathan came for 4 years, that is 6 years. Then Jonathan got another 4 years. It will now be 10 years. Then 10 years of Jonathan to 8 years of Obasanjo, it will now be 18 years. Then Southerners would have ruled Nigeria for 18 years. Then the North would have ruled Nigeria for 2 years. Now, they came up with all the conspiracy against Jonathan government. Jonathan left here. All the insecurity that were being fueled under Jonathan, just to discredit the government and to make the government look as if Nigeria was unsafe under Jonathan. Even though Jonathan himself as a person may have no shortcomings, yes, okay, but it was just a conspiracy against him to remove him. Even people that were following him to campaign, like a former governor of Bauchi State, Adamu Muazu, they were following the man to campaign and they were working against him without him knowing. And the man left office.
Is that playing out today?
Yeah, that is what is playing out. Because the issue of this defection, we need to know what is happening. So in recent time, when you put use your social media, you see how some people are regrouping in the north. They are regrouping against the government of Tinubu. Even those who were in Tinubu's camp that helped him to become president. Instead of them to point out the errors because they have access to the president. They are not talking about the errors. They are not talking about the weaknesses and how I can strengthen them. They are talking of how to take power from him. So what is playing out is like a reminiscence of what played out in Jonathan's period. And so, if I were to be Tinubu, for example, I would make sure I have a base. If I'm from the south, let me have a certain base. Then I can use the people that I have that give it core appointment in the north to get some votes from the north, so that I can still win presidency in 2027. Okay. That is my personal opinion.
Okay.
But on the basis of my study and a scientific-based study, that the north is about to take power from Tinubu, and they are ganging up. That is not actually northern citizens. Yeah. That is the elite people that control the north. Okay. They will now use religion and ethnic politics and all this insecurity that they are perpetrating to say, you see now that this man cannot protect us, let us put our person there. Right. So when people are decamping from the north, from the south, whether Oburiwori or Kowa and the rest of them, whether it's the deputy governorship candidate of PDP, but they are making references to some of the things that the president is doing and why they need to align themselves with the president.
Fantastic. Talk about the issue of democracy dying. I mean, even in civilized climes, we are seeing, you know, the walls or the structures that held democracy up falling apart. Isn't that what's also happening back here? Because now we are seeing a lot of ethnicism, tribalism, and other sentiments driving this defection, and not whether, you know, this is the ideology of the political party, and some of the things that are that are being brought forth by those who are defecting doesn't reflect the ideals of democracy, as it were.
You see, democracy is not. Some people argue that democracy is not just a means to an end; it is an end in itself. If it is true that democracy is a means to an end, that is, democracy is having dual credentials, being a means to an end and being an end in itself, the people need to understand their environment where they practice democracy. Because if you are practicing democracy in America, the democracy is not a balloon that is hanging in the sky. The democracy is going to affect people of different origin, like the indigenous Americans, the Red Indians, or the Latinos, or the African Americans. So when you are practicing democracy, if you want the people to have a sense of belonging so that they can contribute their quota to the survival and growth or the consolidation of that democracy, you must give them a sense of belonging by playing what we call politics of inclusion. When you now play politics of exclusion, the people will be disillusioned. And instead of throwing their weight behind the democracy that you practice and the survival of the state itself that is practicing democracy, they withdraw to their cocoon and they look for means of subverting not only that democracy, or they will subvert the state. That is what is happening in different parts of the world where we are practicing democracy. And that's why I believe that even though democracy is an ideology that we borrowed, starting from the Greek city-states of Athens, of Megara, of Corinth, and Sigium, and Sicily, and the rest of them, we are supposed to have domesticated our democracy in line with what I said about late General Sani Abacha just now. If Nigeria is made up of different ethnic groups, and the ethnic groups are now grouped into 6 geopolitical zones, let political power, office of the president, be rotating among these 6 geopolitical zones, so that if the power is in the north at a particular point in time, northerners should know that they have to make sure they make their person to succeed. Then southerners will have to know, they have to also be grooming their person that would be the person to make them to succeed when it is not time for power to come to their side. Okay. In that situation, people will be giving sense of belonging to their democracy and to their state. But today, we are practicing civilian rule and not democratic rule. Because of this, people feel excluded and they have to look for alternative means of engaging the state. For example, the democracy that we say we are practicing is a democracy that's created security gap between the state and the citizens. Criminals now cash in on that gap to perpetrate criminality. And the most annoying part of it is that when this matter get to the police, several police, not all of them, but many police officers that are stationed, that are investigating cases. They are investigating cases in their own interest, not in the interest of the state. And they will prepare the case the way the case will go and fail in court. So if you see somebody that, God forbid, that kidnap you, and you now, the person is apprehended, you go to court to go and give evidence, or you go to police, make statement. Don't be surprised that 3 months or 3 weeks after, you see the same person. The person will even come and confess and say, I think I may be this. I was not the one that you reported I was arrested.
Yes.
I will come for you.
Yeah.
So you see the security gap, the network.
Yeah.
Now, there are gaps of legitimacy. Like, democracy is a system of government where people are supposed to choose their leaders freely and can record them.
Yeah.
But there is a gap now, legitimacy gap, and that legitimacy crisis is being filled by all this decamping.
Yeah.
You are aware that in the case of Delta State, the election of Borewori is still being challenged
In court.
by Omo Agege, and now he has come to join Omo Agege in his political party.
That's what happens.
You see that buries the legitimacy crisis that was already being challenged in Delta State.
Yeah.
So there are so many gaps that Democrats in Nigeria, those who are who say they are practicing democracy in Nigeria, they have created, just like in other places. And when they create such gaps, they give opportunity to people to contest not only with the democratic practice, but to contest with the state.
How do you justify the statement that we have civilian rule in Nigeria, not democracy, and yet you call the practitioners Democrats?
No, that is why you see me, I'm making sign of invited comma. That is to say, the people I'm referring to as Democrats,
yes,
they are not actually, in the research, they are not actually them. That is why I use the...
All right, let's take a pause. We have a human rights lawyer with us now, Patrick Esekwene Esquire. Thank you for joining us on the program, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay, just give us a summary of your thoughts on what we've seen so far with the defections. I mean, the biggest of all the defection is the clean sweep in Delta State. Former governor, incumbent governor, commissioners, local government chairman, I mean, everybody just moved en masse to the ruling party, and the former governor said he wants to connect to the center. He didn't do that when he was in the saddle. Quickly.
Well, that is the trending news, and constitutionally, you have a right of freedom of association to where you feel like belonging is not a do or die issue. You can decide that. But why we're a bit worried is that the party haven't spent so much and the people to bring you to an office. Overnight, took over an eye, you just say you are defecting. It's emotionally killing for those that struggled to make sure they win that election. That is there. So, but for me, I also would see it as not just cause. Most of it is for selfish reason. That is why I've said severally here that I don't believe in discussing person. Discuss issue at stake. Because it can be disappointing, frustrating. Because these people they are not what they think they are. You can see the moves. So most the company that I see it is for their own selfish reason, not for anything. No duress, no say reason they want to, nothing whatsoever. Most of them have a second-term ambition. All of them have ambition. They feel that by defecting, they will make it.
Okay.
That is just a simple reason, nothing more than that.
Okay.
That
so
is
this is basically for selfish reasons.
Yeah, selfish reasons.
Okay.